Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my January wrap-up. So I finished December reading the third book in the Truly Devious series, and I just wanted to keep it going and finally finish the series because I have been reading it for some time. And so the first book I read in January was the fourth book in the Truly Devious series, which is called The Box in the Woods. And in this series, it's a mystery sort of thriller series, mostly mystery. And we follow Stevie, and she, like in the first three books, she was working on the same mystery, which was a mystery about her school and like the past that had happened. Someone had been murdered, and then some other mysteries started happening in the present while she was at the school. But the first three books were all focused on the same thing basically, and in this fourth one we get a whole new mystery. And so Stevie is contacted by a guy who owns or is somehow connected to a summer camp in which there have been a murder or murders in the past. And so he contacts Stevie to have her go there and spend the summer there, and she and her friends, and also work on the mystery because now she's sort of famous for figuring out what happened with the mystery at the school. And so Stevie and her friends all go to the summer camp and she starts investigating, and it was definitely fun, and I think it was refreshing to have a new mystery to focus on because honestly I was kind of tired of the old one because 3 books is kind of a lot. And yeah, Stevie definitely got into some trouble as usual, and it was fun to see the investigation progress, to try to piece the clues together, try to figure out what happened along with Stevie. And yeah, I definitely had a lot of fun with this one, and I gave it 4 stars. And then I read the 5th and at least so far last book in the series, which is called 9 Liars. And in this one, Stevie is in her final year of high school, and she is kind of lost and without prospects for the future because her big goal in life was to solve that mystery. So now that she has solved the one from the 3 first books, so now that she has solved the mystery, she is kind of lost without a purpose. And her boyfriend, who is living in England, calls her and basically invites her to go spend some time there with him. And she goes, and she also takes her friends, like the ones that we have also been following since book 1. And when she's in England, she meets one of her boyfriend's friends, and she tells Stevie about a crime mystery of the past that is connected to her family, because it was her aunt and her 8 friends. They were the 9 of them were together, and they were spending the night at one of their houses, and 2 of them were murdered, and the crime was never solved. And once again, fun to have a new mystery, fun to have a new investigation, seeing how Stevie solved it. And that was fun, but at the same time I feel like we spent way too much time focusing on the characters' issues, especially Stevie, but not only Stevie. And I do like the characters. I don't love them, but they're fine. I like them. They're alright. But I'm here to see the mystery unfold, not really to worry about their personal problems. So I didn't love it as much. I feel like there was, it was too much. A little bit, it's fine. But I feel like it was too much of that. And yeah, it was okay. I didn't dislike it, but it was fine. I give it 3 stars. Next, I read The Final Girl Support Group, and this is a horror book. And I read this one because I read 2 books from this author last year, which I loved. And they were My Best Friend's Exorcism and The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And yeah, so in this one, we follow Lynette and her support group of final girls. So basically women who have been the sole survivors of murder sprees, of massacres, So they are, I don't know, maybe 6 women in this support group, and in the beginning of the book they're like having a session, and one of them did not show up, and we soon learn that she has been killed. And so Lynette thinks that there is someone coming for all of them, all the final girls. And she is trying to figure out how to survive and how to, discover who is trying to kill them. Because whoever it is, it seems to have way too much information about them, like personal information that they should not have. Especially Lynette, she doesn't share anything about her with anyone. Like, no one even knows where she lives. No one knows anything. And the others, they're not as strict with information, but also they're not, sharing their personal information with everyone. So yeah, whoever the killer is, they seem to know a lot about them. And so I went into this book with high expectations because, like I said, I really like the other two books I read from this author, but I didn't really like this one. I hated every single character, and in the other books, like, this author definitely knows how to write unlikable characters because I never like almost anyone, but in this one I didn't like anyone. So, not exactly a fun experience. And also I was kind of bored, even though like it should be thrilling, these women trying to survive a killer, but I was bored. And there was like one specific scene that was so unrealistic. And I know, like, this is fiction. It can be unrealistic, but also it's supposed to be set, like, in the real world with real world rules. So it should be kind of realistic. And yeah, I was just reading thinking there is no way this would possibly ever happen. So there was that, and there was a plot twist which I appreciated, but it was not exactly the plot twist that I was wanting. So again, didn't like love it. And I mean, there were some like fight action scenes that were fun, and I did appreciate that, but overall, like, I didn't really like it that much. But also, like, I didn't hate it. It was just, like I said, I was just kind of bored the whole time, and gave it 2.5 stars. Next, I read Sandstorm, which is the first book in the Sigma Force series, which is a mystery thriller series. And honestly, I struggled to talk about this book like in my reading vlogs, and I am gonna struggle to talk about this book now because it was just a lot. But basically, there was an explosion in a museum in London that seemed to be connected to an artifact that was there at the museum. And, the people from the museum were trying to, figure out what the hell was happening. And at the same time, another team was sent there, and that is the Sigma Force team, who are people who are military trained. And they have more information about possible information about the explosion. And yeah, they start investigating, and I don't want to give anything away, but starting with what I did like, I liked the premise and the plot, and I liked how it mixed, reality, like things that actually exist in our world, and myths and fantasy in a way, and also science fiction. I liked how it mixed all of that. Really enjoyed. I was very entertained with the plots, but the characters. First of all, there were so many characters, and they were all like introduced with so much detail, and some of them like appeared once and never again, but I was trying to keep track of all of them because I never knew if they were gonna appear again or not. So it was just kind of overwhelming. And in addition to that, I didn't really like the characters. I didn't feel like they had, much of a personality. I mean, it's a good thing that I'm mostly a plot-driven reader, not as much characters, because, like, these characters, no. And also, there was a love triangle that, like I said, I didn't care about the characters, so I obviously wasn't gonna care about a love triangle, but the book as a whole was interesting. And in this series, we are gonna follow the Sigma Force people, but I know that it's not always the same people. At least, like, I've seen that in the second book, it's not the same people as in the first. So I am intrigued. I will at least read the second book, see how it goes, but to this one, I gave 3 stars. Next, I read The Ruinous Fate, which is the first book in the Heartless Fate series. And this is a fantasy series, a new fantasy series that was one of my anticipated releases for this year. And in this book, we follow Calliope, or Kala, and she is a witch. And just like every witch in that world, her fate is connected to some magical objects, which are the witch's dice. And so every witch has to, roll dice to see what their fate will be. And Kala has left her coven because she thinks that, she might be kind of cursed because her fate might be connected to a future war and the ruin of her people. So she has left her coven. She is trying to live her life away from her looming fate, but she is kind of betrayed like right at the beginning of the book, and so she's getting like closer and closer to what her fate might be. And then she meets someone who tells her that there might be a way to reset her fate if she goes into the never-ending forest, which they also call the demonic forest. So as you can imagine, it's a delightful place. And in there, they go through some like small challenges, small quests, and that was definitely very fun. And the whole plot was very fun. I was very entertained. I really liked Scala, and I really liked her friends as well. And I really like the information that we got about the world and like the witch queens and why there might be a war coming and their gods, which are the fates. And I really liked learning about all of that. So I just had a lot of fun with this book. The one thing that I didn't really love was the romance, which might be a me problem because I don't usually like particularly care about romance. So I didn't really love it. And like it was a big focus of the book, and it's kind of a big focus of the plot. Like the romance is important for the rest of the plot. So, it was a lot of time spent on the romance that I didn't really care about. I didn't dislike it. I just didn't, care. But overall, I really had a good time with this book, and I am looking forward to the next books in this series, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read another anticipated release, and this one was a mystery thriller, and it was called They're Watching You. And in this book, we followed Maren, and she is trying to figure out what happened to her friend and roommate, Polly, because Polly has been missing for, I'm not sure how many months, but like a few months. And everyone believes that she just ran away, she just decided to disappear, but Maren does not believe that, because a few months before Polly disappeared, she started being very distant. She would barely talk to Maren, she would barely hang out, she would barely even be in their dorm. And so she knows that whatever happened to Polly is probably connected to the people that she was hanging out with before disappearing. And actually, the night before Polly disappeared, she told Maren that she had something important to tell her. And Maren obviously doesn't know what it was, but she's sure that it's about like those people that she was hanging out with. So Maren is determined to find out what happened, and she finds an invitation for Polly for a like secret society in their school. And so Maren decides to enter the secret society herself, and she manages, and then she starts playing the society's games until they become kind of, dangerous, deadly even. But she's kind of willing to do anything to find Polly, to figure out what happened to her. And that was kind of the premise. And I was, like I said, this was one of my anticipated releases. I was very excited for this book. And like it was definitely very fast to read. It was very easy to read. I got through it very quickly. But those are pretty much the only positive things I have to say about this book. And starting off with Maren, I didn't really like her, and like she was kind of boring, and also her like reactions to things were kind of strange. Also, there was a romance between her and another character that, first of all, unnecessary. Second of all, did not like it one bit. Not like the other book that I didn't care about. No, this one I really did not like it. And it was such a big focus of the book. And for what, And another thing, like the antagonist we spent most of the time with was so like they talked as if they were some kind of evil mastermind, and I was just like, you are literally like a high school student. And I don't know, it just felt ridiculous. And yeah, I did not enjoy it. And also, like, the big reveal, plot twist, whatever, was so obvious. Like, it was the thing that I was expecting from the beginning. And, I was expecting that, but I thought, maybe there will be an actual plot twist that blows my mind. But there wasn't. So, did not like this one and gave it 2 stars. Next, I read Body of Evidence, and this is also like a crime mystery thriller. Not really a thriller, it's a crime mystery. Okay. This is like the third ambulance to go past my street, I don't know, in the last 20 minutes. The other two, like the sirens, were not blaring, but I saw the lights. But anyway, like I was saying, I read Body of Evidence, which is a crime mystery, and this is the second book in the Case Carpeta series. And we follow, obviously, Case Carpeta, and she is a medical examiner. And this one, we are investigating the death of an author who was being stalked before she died. I mean, before she was killed. And her manuscript, like the book she was working on, disappeared when she died. And she also had like some connections, some strained relationship with another author. And honestly, I read this book not because I really wanted to read this series, but because I really wanted like a physical book to read. And most of the other books I have here, they are going to be for videos, and then I just have books at home in Portugal. So I read this one, and like I said, I wasn't really wanting to continue with the series because I didn't love the first book. The main character, I didn't like her. I didn't like hate her, but I didn't like her. She was meh. And the mystery in the first book, we got to the end, we found out who the killer was, but we didn't get like a reason as to why they were killing people. And that definitely frustrated me. But in this one, like, I have bad things, like some things got worse, some things got better. So Kay, actually, like, she remained the same. I don't love her, I don't hate her, she exists, she's there, she's whatever. But there's another character, the detective she works with. I hate him. He just made so many homophobic comments, and no one ever like said anything about that. The only time Kay ever said something, it was kind of like a joke. So I just like, no. And so yeah, I hate him. But the mystery did get so much better, and I actually really enjoyed the investigation, and I really enjoyed like all the forensic details. It was very like CSI vibes. And as a forensic scientist, maybe I shouldn't like CSI that much because it is super unrealistic, but I do like it because it was actually like my first introduction to the forensic world, so it just holds a special place in my heart. And so yeah, very much CSI vibes, which I enjoyed. And like, we see the actual forensic work being done, or at least being described. And I mean, it's definitely more realistic than in CSI. It's not like, yeah, I will give you these DNA results in 1 hour. Not that kind of thing here. It's more realistic for sure. And yeah, definitely really enjoyed that. And we did get the reason as to why that author was killed, which I also definitely enjoyed. And so yeah, mixed feelings about this book. I did give it 3 stars, but I don't know if I will continue reading the series because I don't want to keep reading like that horrible character. So yeah, moving on. The next book I read was Hellbent, and this is a dark academia mystery fantasy book, and this is the second book in the Alex Stern series. And we follow, obviously, Alex, and she is studying at Yale, but she's also part of an organization that oversees the rituals that the secret societies of Yale perform, and she's basically supposed to make sure nothing goes wrong. And in the first book and also this one, there were murder mysteries that were, connected to the supernatural aspect of the book. And obviously in this one, hell is part of the plot, and Alex also has her own supernatural abilities. And in this one, like, the main focus was a rescue mission, which I was so excited about. And yeah, this book was really fun. I really like, pretty much every single character, which is not common for me. And I definitely love Alex. And I love the friendships in this book, especially Alex and Dawes, who is also part of that organization. They are so fucking adorable. I just love them so much. And yeah, the plot was very interesting, even though like there were more than one thing going on and I wanted more focus on one of them, but anyway, still had a lot of fun. And like the vibes were perfect, and the pacing was also, in my opinion, like the perfect pacing for this story. And it was not giving me the 5-star feeling, but I was debating between giving it 4 or 4.5 stars. But the ending didn't, destroy me like I wanted it to. So I gave it 4 stars. And I will link my reading vlog for this book in the description and up there if you want to check my thoughts. Most of it is spoiler free, but I do have a spoiler section. So if you want to check it out, it's here. Anyway, next book was Lost in the Moment and Found, which is the 8th book in the Wayward Children series, and this is a series of fantasy novellas. And so in this book, we follow children who go through magical doors that lead them to other worlds. And in this one specifically, we followed Antoinette, or Ancy, and we actually got quite a bit of her life before she got through the magical door. And let me just tell you that it was sad. It was uncomfortable. I just felt really bad for her, and she was such an adorable child. And I don't even, love children, but I just wanted to hug her because she was so cute and she was going through bad things. So I just wanted to hug her. But anyway, she finds a magical door and she goes through. And in her case, she doesn't exactly go to another world. She goes to the shop where the lost things go. And it's basically what the name says. It's a shop where things that people lose go. They just appear there, things that are lost. And from that store, there are like doors that open to other worlds. And that's how we get some glimpses of other worlds. We briefly explore some of them, and we also meet people from yet other worlds. And so that was definitely fun, like the fantasy aspect of the story. And then we also learned how the shop was created, which was also such a sad story. And the end of this book just made me emotional. I almost cried. And yeah, like this one definitely destroyed me, and therefore I had to give it 5 stars. Next, I read All Hallows, and this was a horror book. And the premise was that there were 3 children in Halloween that showed up at a random town, and they were asking people for help because they were running from the Cunning Man. And so, that's what I expected. I expected some sort of monster, creature, whatever, called the Cunning Man that I was going to be terrified of. But that is not exactly what happened, because for most of the book, we were following 2 families and 2 best friends, and we were just learning how their relationships were all falling apart. And like I said, this was most of the book. We spent much more time with this than I expected. And this is definitely a personal preference, but I don't really like, real life horror in my horror books. I want my horror books to be supernatural. Like, I don't want it to just be, bad people, because, that's already the world, like the real world. I don't need that in my books. So I was not loving it as I expected, but the last maybe third was definitely more intense, because it was actually like the supernatural part, and there were definitely like creepy children, which are definitely one of the scariest things for me. And yeah, that part was definitely intense. It was scary, it was creepy. I had a lot of fun with it. And I do have to say that even though I wasn't like loving learning about these people's personal problems, I cared more about it than I have in other books that have these kind of setting. So even though it wasn't my favorite type of horror, like I liked it more than other similar books that I have read. Like I was actually invested in knowing what happened to them. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. And finally, the last book I read was The Guest List, which was a mystery thriller. And in this book, Jules and Will are getting married in an island off the coast of Ireland. And their guests are arriving there. And we follow, I think, 5 or 6 POVs. And we get sort of a like dual timeline because most of the chapters are like before the day before the wedding or like during the wedding, but then we also have some flash forwards for like after the wedding, like at night, I guess, when a body was found. So we don't really know who died. It's not said until pretty much the end of the book, but I thought it was pretty obvious, at least like from the beginning of the book. I guessed who it was. And since it's not said who died, it's not like we have an actual investigation during the book. So we just have a lot of conversations, just people talking about, themselves and their relationships with each other. And honestly, I was kind of bored. And obviously, those conversations eventually led to basically everyone having a motive to kill whoever died. And like I guessed all of the motives except for one. And so none of the reveals really were like shocking to me, even though like the character who actually did kill that person was not the one I was expecting to be the killer. But I didn't care about any of it. So it's not like I was, oh my god, how shocking. I just didn't care. And also like I really hated pretty much every single character. So it was just not an enjoyable experience in any way. And I just think that, this author is probably not for me because I read another book by this author last year, The Paris Apartment, which I also really did not like. And yeah, I guess it's just not the author for me, and I gave it 2 stars. And those were the 11 books I read in January. There were some great books, there were some not so great books, but yeah, that was it. And that is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!